Hello, my soul brothers and soul sisters. I am Ron Smith, and this is the Dr. Ron Smith Investigating Show, where we separate the real from fake, the fact from fiction, and give you the winner's edge. And sometimes we're able to turn your water into wine. This is season 2, episode number 5, and we're going to talk about something near and dear to my heart. Why do smart people do dumb things with money? Why do smart people do dumb things with money? And I don't want you to be offended because I know you're smart. But one of the things that I want to share with you is that just because I'm a smart attorney doesn't mean that I'm a smart doctor, and vice versa, which means that basically we have in our society used ignorance as a bad word. It's just that basically I'm just not smart in certain areas. And one of the things that we all are affected by money, and one of the things to having a successful and productive life is to be financially literate, as well as have financially understanding. That is one of the things that I've tried to bring to my podcast, and because the podcast is the talk, is the conversation I wish I had, which means that basically there are a lot of things that I did not know, and as I stated in season 1, I went through my life with my money on trial and error, and I'm on trial for some of my errors, which means that some of the things that I should have known as an adult, I didn't, and I made mistakes regarding it. So we're going to talk about what smart people and some of the mistakes they made. Dumb mistakes is one of the things I wanted to, catch your, that attention getter, so to speak. So one of the things is that we learn basically our basic understanding from our parents. And our parents are the number one teachers. So basically, they taught us, how to walk, how to talk, et cetera, et cetera. They fed us, and they established our dietary system. And they prepared us for going to kindergarten and preschool. So they are our first teachers. So one of the things that you inherited, whether you liked it or not, is how your parents view money. I didn't have the advantage of learning financial literacy from my parents. So one of the things that I have to learn, by just what society and everybody else was doing, which was a major mistake. One of the things that I know that as I learned from my parent is that we use money to buy things and pay for things. Investing and savings was not a big priority or issue because of the lack of funds that we were coming into the house. So basically, paying bills and just almost like survival mode. What I've learned from society, and what most of us learn from society, is consumerism. Unfortunately, this nation has decided to take the goal off the standard of our economy, and we based it on consumerism. And so society with social media, television, newspaper, magazine, all these things are influence us to buy. Very little do you hear about investing in savings. There is a small percentage of that, and we're going to get into that. But basically, what we learn from our parents and society has stifled our growth about investing and saving. One of the things that the influences that we have is the banking system. If you look at the banking system per se, basically one of the things that they they tell us about financial literacy is that basically you have to have a savings and a checking account. Now, and basically, you start that with a bank, preferably, and transparently. I prefer a credit union, even though there are certain credit unions that has been in the news that I won't name right now, that they are operating the same as certain banks with not loaning mortgages to people who look like me. But that's another story for another day. But banks, if you think about it, banks take your money into your savings account, and they're not giving you but a small percentage of that as far as return on your savings. They take that money. Let's take, for instance, if you put $10 in there, $9 of that money goes to investing, or they into other people. What I call, they sell money to other people for loans and what have you. So basically, your money is being used at least 9 times of investing with other people, and they give you a little small percentage of that. So is the bank really your friend? Questionable. Wall Street, when you use your 401k with your mutual funds and your stocks and what have you, your financial instruments, one of the things that I talked about last week about the 401k, and I'm gonna mention that, but please go back to episode 4 when I talked about the 401k, is that it appears that that was never set up to be a pension plan. Unfortunately for us, companies have stopped their pension plan for us and exposed us to the risk of investing themselves. It was a time when companies invest your money and they took the risk, and they had established whether you're going to get a pension 40 years, 30 years, 40 years. But now they put that onus on you. The problem with that is that no one prepared us for the financial investments. And that's why, no matter if you're a brain surgeon, you would not train to be an investor. So you have to rely on other people. And we're going to get into what you need to look for when you talk about financial investors. And one of the things that our parents wanted us to do is home ownership. And I'm going to get a little details regarding home ownership, the pros and cons of that. But for the most part, the financial institution and the mortgage company are the one that benefit from that. So you have all these influences, whether it was your parents or from society, of how you need to, what you need to do with your money. And you personally had thought, gave it a more consistent thought about how you wanted to your money to do for you. So basically, that's why smart people do dumb things with money. One of the things that brings out emotions is how you spend your money. I know the first thing I did when I got money, I instead of having the concept of whether I was going to save, invest, I spent. So that was my concept to money. And until, a couple of years ago, I had to rein that back in and try to figure out why did that make me feel good, which means that I bought candy with it, and now people talk about going shopping and retail therapy. That came from that inherited point of what we learned how to deal with money. And we need to basically put that under a microscope and see if that's working for us. And I can probably tell you that it's not. When you have things that you have purchased but still have tags on it and you haven't worn it yet, so that will give you an indication that that theory and that concept is not working for you. So even other emotional blind spots. And I kind of briefly mentioned this before, is that one of the things that was kind of thrust on me was that since you know my children was going to go to college before I retired, I had considered paying for, I guess, investing for college more than retirement. Uh, One of the things that I had to consider is, uh, whether a private college or a state college. And one of the things that you want to send your children to college because it opened up opportunities for a high paying career, and the influences of continuing your education. But what happened to that thing is that um, college loans, one of the things that, the big issues in this political campaign is what we're going to do with the college debt. And one of the things that, I found out, I stumbled across a couple of years ago, is that even if you file for bankruptcy, uh, besides medical expenses and legal expenses, student loans are not forgiven. Those are the three things that are not forgiven. All other debts couldn't be forgiven, and you need to make that consideration. And also, a private school versus a state school. What is the return on investment of that? And what I mean by that is that a lot of people want their children or themselves go to a name brand school because they think that's one of the things that sticks out. Research has shown that the criterion for as far as your university is not even first, not even second, not even third. It's the ninth criterion for most of the employers. Now, I understand that basically if you go to one of the Ivy League schools and you get interviewed by one of the alumnus, then basically that might give you maybe a slight edge in that. So that might be one of your first considerations. But overall, it's the ninth criterion for employment. Now, 401k. I mentioned 401k, and matter of fact, I did a whole show. Episode 4 was on 401k. I had many friends who, throughout my career, who were what I call paper multimillionaires, which means basically they were a millionaire on paper, but if you start reading the fine print, basically that millions start to evaporate, and the volatility of the stock also will be eroding on that also. So go to last week's show, and you can get more details about the 401k. Now, but one of the things that I want you to, why smart people do dumb things is that there are some things that you should look for when you talk about a financial advisor. Now, there's a difference between a financial advisor, a salesperson that sells insurance instruments that could be used for retirement, as well as fiduciaries. So, one of the things that you should be asking this individual is that, are you legally bound to put my legal interest or my interest first at all times? Now, everybody is not even bound by that. And the key to it, the answer is, if you need to find a fiduciary, they are the ones that actually are bound to do that. A person that sells you even these 401k packages are not bound by that. Next is you ask them, is the person registered or is they licensed to actually do that? Well, one of the things that you need to be aware of is if that person is licensed to do that. And when we get back after this break, we're going to continue with the questions you should ask your financial advisor. Hello, my soul brothers and soul sister. I am Ron Smith, and this is the Dr. Ron Smith halftime show. And we're talking about today, we're in episode 5. We're talking about why smart people do dumb things with money. And what I just want to do a brief summary is that basically our parents are our first teachers. So we are inheriting some of the things, the pros and cons that we deal with money today from our parents. And basically, whether how we spend it and how we save it and how we invest it our parents has influence in that. And we have to realize that, whether you liked or disliked the way your parents dealt with money, that is a emotional issue. And sometimes it causes some blind spots. Besides our parents, society influence us how to do it. And I mentioned before, the United States is on a consumer economy. Therefore, basically, they want you to buy this economy back into, I guess, this course correction that we are into. And they do that through social media. And I just think about this last month, we just had the Super Bowl. Each of those commercials cost $7 million. And the reason why each of those commercials costs $7 million because of the exposure. I think the halftime show was Usher did the halftime show. I think it was over 140 million people worldwide watched the Super Bowl. And I would say all the commercials they're played was consumer. They want to sell you something. And that is the reason why we are influenced by that. Think about it. No one's, there is a movement now for financial literacy in schools. But even at that, it's per minimum, which state is basically you just need a checking and savings account. How do you do your income and expenses? How do you tabulate your assets and liability? And one of the things that I mentioned earlier is that most of those things is in the interest of banks. Banks want you to open up a checking and savings account because it benefits them more than it benefits you. For every $10 you put into your bank or savings account, $9 are used to get other investors and other people so they can expand their empire. The same thing with your 401k. They want you to invest in mutual funds or in stocks. Who benefits more than that? Is basically, the Wall Street guys, because they are the major investors. And no matter if you are doing investment at home and you consider yourself a day trader, your computer is never going to be as powerful and more active and responsive to theirs, the major players in the game. And so, we are encouraged to buy homes, but the main beneficiary of that is mortgage companies and the financial institution. So basically, my whole show was we talked about the conversation that I never had, which means basically our responsibilities as adults, as responsible adults, is to learn and do better, and also to share the information with our children. So I mentioned basically when you talk about money, you talk about a lot of emotional blind spots because basically since we are professionals and we are smart people, we put the onus on ourselves that we should know better than make mistakes. And we should know better how, if we get scammed. And the thing about it is our pride would not allow us to even admit that we made money mistakes. So there's the emotional blind spot about that. And one of the things that I was sharing before is that since my children was going to college prior to me retiring, I focused more on college than I did on retirement because I, basically thought I could be able to catch up. And one of the things that I learned, the secret to investing is time. The younger you start, the more you be able to accumulate. And that's one of the things that, on this talk show, we try to share. And what is the, going to higher education is admirable, but it's not for everybody. And that's another thing that we need to consider. Everybody, and you have to be bold enough to understand that all your children should not even go to college. Some need to go to trade school. Some need to be apprentice. And to believe it or not, if you go to get your car repaired, you understand what I'm saying. If you read your sheet, that mechanic is paid like $200 something an hour. Now I know all that is not going to that mechanic; it's going to the, maybe about 75% of that going to the shop. But my point is that is a skill set. But basically, he didn't get a 4-year institution degree to actually do that, and that's one of the things that we need to consider. So, the question is, what can go wrong with college debt? Well, most of the thing is, and matter of fact, I just saw a news article about this lady who was a caregiver. She was like 2 credit away from going to college, but because of her income level, she had to continue to work, and she couldn't even go back to college. Which means basically she didn't fulfill that college criteria to get the degree. So now she have to employ in something lesser than what her original intent was. And then we have to look at private versus a state university. And one of the things that I've learned is that you need to look at the ROI, with the return on investment. Well, going to let's say a private institution with certain degrees, will that really give you a return on investment? Yeah, I can see if you're going for being an attorney or being going to med school, that might makes a difference. But even that, there's ways that basically you can make that less expenses also. And most people go to a name brand institution because we think that employees or employers look at those things. And there's been research saying that the name brand schools are not in the first or second or third criterion for employers. And matter of fact, it said it's number 9. So you have a lot of things like on the job training, internships, outernships, all those things are rated higher than basically your brand name school. And so that needs to be taken into consideration. And I mentioned retirement, I mentioned 401k. Episode 4, which was last week, I went into depth about the what I call the paper multimillionaires and why I call them that. So here's some things that you need to do when you talk to a financial advisor. First, you have to ask them, are they legally bound to put your interests first? Which means that basically what you're asking, are you a fiduciary? Which means that if they're not a fiduciary, they're not bound to put your interests first. Ask them if they're licensed or registered. Ask them if they have ever been sanctioned for unethical conduct. That should be very important to you. And most of all, is there any conflict of interest? By you telling me that I need to put my money in this particular financial instrument, who are standing to gain from that? See, I understand that one thing, a fiduciary be able to put you in the best position to benefit from all of your investment. A salesperson is virtually locked into a particular product, and they can only sell you this particular product from their company. And that product, of course, benefits them and as well as the company. And fiduciary don't have to actually do that sort of thing. You need to ask them how much the investment costs. That's one of the things that I didn't do. I'm being candid and transparent is that all the things that I'm mentioning for the last 15 to 20 minutes, I didn't know that I needed to ask. So that's the reason why we have this podcast talk show. The things that basically I wish I had known. Is there any alternatives to, you might be telling me that I need to go here with my money, but there should be another alternative that may be just as lucrative. How easy is it for me to take my money out of this particular product? That's one of the things I know that was not discussed when I first started. And if it was very, very brief and maybe very low key. What I know for sure is that basically early withdrawal from a 401k, there's a 10% penalty before you get 59 and a half. And that's just the beginning, because then there's other tax implication after that. So basically you get double whammy. And then you have to realize, in what I just mentioned, what are the tax consequences now if I take it out now or even after? One of the things they don't tell you or emphasize, I put it this way. I'm not going to tell nobody to tell you, but they do not emphasize that basically, let's say that basically you're 60, let's say 66 years old, and you're ready to take some money out of your account. And what are the tax implications of that? So now, when you was working, you had a mortgage, you might have had your 401k, you had your children, all those children deductions, child income tax deductions, et cetera, et cetera. Post-retirement, most of your cars are paid for, most of the house is almost paid for, and your kids are gone, and you don't have all those write-offs. So would that expose you to a higher tax bracket is my point. Then I would ask, what is the worst case scenario that would happen? That's something they don't talk to you about, because everybody always tell you about the average price of the stock going up. They say it dips every now and then, but it's over the long run, basically you're looking at between 8 and 13%. That's the best case scenario. But the worst case scenario is 2008 and so other years where the bottom just fell out. And if you retired at the wrong time, guess what happened to your 401k? You're taking a dip. And right now we're in a volatile market, and I'm not, I didn't check today and see where we are, but we are still in a volatility of the market. And one of the things that going back to your parents' influence, we were taught that basically home ownership was really preached hard, and that was one of our aims, that we need to have home ownership. Now, I still believe in the home ownership, but I believe in a different narrative than the regular, because if you look at it without emotional involvement, you will see that basically that you are paying a mortgage, you're paying insurance, and as well as you're paying the taxes on it. If that was an asset, the asset would be paying you. So as I get ready to wrap up, I will continue this line of thought, is that basically one of the things that you want to look at in today's market, most people have to rent. And what I've seen is that large corporations have been buying up houses all over the United States and in Canada. As a matter of fact, the major investor, I think, is Triton Corporation, has bought over 80,000 homes in the United States. And then their investors who bought 50 to 20 and multiple houses for rent. And some of these landlords and these corporations have been doing some unscrupulous things. And my point is that you need to consider that. I think you should invest in home ownership. At the same time, my thing is that if you invest in multi rental property, you'll be to your benefit, especially if you're a young investor or a young person. Instead of trying to buy a single family home, you need to buy a duplex, which means that basically you own the whole building and you're renting out one, so man, paying for the total mortgage. And there's a lot of benefits that you can have with that. So I will continue why smart people do dumb things with money in episode 6, because there's a lot of things that I want to cover that I hadn't, and my time is up, and I thank you for yours.